She left her friend's house after midnight, just a 10-minute walk to get home, but she never made it. 6 years later, the streets of Joplin still whisper one question: who was the last person to see Sarah Burton alive? The night hung heavy over Joplin, Missouri. It was July 16th, 2018, the kind of summer night when the air feels thick enough to hold secrets. Streetlights buzzed, dogs barked in the distance, and somewhere, a young woman was walking alone through the narrow grid of Rex Avenue, a few blocks from home. Sarah Elizabeth Burton, 25 years old, a mother of 2 boys who were already asleep that night, waiting for a morning that would never come. Neighbors would later recall hearing a car door slam around 12:30 a.m. Someone thought they saw a figure in a hoodie near the corner store. Another swore they heard a woman's voice calling out faintly, but by the time anyone looked outside, the street was empty again. By sunrise, Joplin woke up like any other small Midwestern town, coffee brewing, radios humming, life going on. No one realized that somewhere between those dark streets and the coming dawn, a woman had vanished without a trace. In the days that followed, her phone stopped ringing, her messages went unread, and her children asked questions her family couldn't answer. Police would say later that Sarah's last known location was the area of 10th Street and Rex Avenue. But for the people who loved her, that sentence became more than a detail in a report. It became a wound. A mother lost her daughter. 2 boys lost their mother. And a town of 50,000 would find itself haunted by the thought that someone out there, maybe someone they passed in the grocery aisle, maybe someone who smiled at them that morning, knew exactly what happened to Sarah Burton. Because disappearances don't happen in isolation. They happen in neighborhoods. They happen between good people who stop asking questions. And in Joplin, Missouri, that silence is still deafening. Sarah Elizabeth Burton wasn't a headline. She was a person, complicated, imperfect, and fighting to hold her life together. Born and raised in Joplin, Missouri, Sarah grew up in a modest house on the city's west side. She loved art and had a knack for sketching faces. Teachers used to say she could draw emotions better than she could explain them. She dreamed of becoming a designer one day, or maybe working with kids. But life in small-town Missouri had a way of changing people's plans. By her early 20s, Sarah was a mother of 2 boys. People who knew her said that motherhood gave her purpose, even when everything else in her life started to fall apart. There were good days, birthday cakes, family photos, her little boys' laughter echoing through their small apartment. But there were bad days too. Days that came with addiction, missed paychecks, and friends who pulled her into darker corners of Joplin's underworld. It started small, a way to cope, to feel less tired, less broken. But methamphetamine doesn't forgive, and soon Sarah found herself caught between wanting to change and being unable to escape. She went through rehab, twice, and after her second attempt, things actually seemed to get better. Her mother, Carol, said in interviews, she was smiling again. She talked about getting her GED, maybe studying nursing. She wanted to be there for her kids. That's all she ever wanted. Neighbors remember her walking her boys to the park, wearing that same denim jacket she'd owned since high school. She was trying. Everyone could see it. But in a town like Joplin, the past has long arms. People talk. Mistakes linger. And no matter how much she tried, the world around her still saw her as that girl who used to use. So when Sarah started acting anxious in the weeks before she vanished, locking her doors, changing her route home, texting her mother that she didn't trust certain people anymore, no one quite knew what to make of it. Some brushed it off as paranoia. Others, in hindsight, call it instinct. By mid-July, Sarah had bruises on her arm from a minor car accident. She was tired, thin, but hopeful. She told her mum she'd visit later that week. "I'll stop by, I promise." That was the last promise she ever made, because within days, everything she'd been fighting for, sobriety, motherhood, redemption, would be swallowed by the dark edges of Joplin's summer night, and no one would ever see Sarah Burton again. In the week before her disappearance, Sarah Burton's world began to fray at the edges. Friends said she seemed distracted, nervous, almost like she was waiting for something to happen. On July 11, 2018, she got into a minor car accident near Rangeline Road. The collision wasn't serious, but she was shaken. Paramedics treated a few cuts and bruises. Her mother offered to drive her home, but Sarah refused. She said she was fine. She said she'd rest and visit later that week, but something about her tone felt off. Carol Burton later said, she sounded scared, but she didn't want to talk about it. Over the next few days, Sarah sent a few short text messages, the kind that sound normal until you read them again later. Everything's okay. Don't worry, Mum, I'll see you soon. I'm good, just tired. But she wasn't okay. She was avoiding someone. One friend, who agreed to speak under anonymity, told local reporters that Sarah had been spending time with a man known to police, a man with a reputation for violence and connections to a small drug circle in Joplin's south side. She wanted to stay clean, the friend said. But she was scared of him, like she couldn't get away. Those close to her noticed changes. She stopped answering calls from certain friends. She looked over her shoulder more often, and one night she told a neighbor she thought someone had been watching her apartment. The neighbor laughed it off, thought she was just paranoid. But when you look back, the signs were all there. On July 15th, the night before she vanished, Sarah was seen at a friend's home, sitting on the porch, smoking a cigarette. They talked about her kids, about starting fresh, maybe even leaving Joplin altogether. She laughed. She looked hopeful again. At 11:47 p.m., that same friend saw her step into a car, a silver sedan. The man driving was someone she'd known for a while. They left together. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Hours later, around 12:30 a.m., a resident near 10th Street and Rex Avenue reported hearing a woman's voice, sharp, frightened, echoing down the road. Police would later say they couldn't verify it. But that street, that intersection, would soon become the epicenter of everything that followed. By sunrise, Sarah's phone had gone dark. Her social media fell silent. No one heard from her again. And yet, there was one last detail that still haunts investigators. Sometime after 1 a.m., a call was made from Sarah's phone. It rang just once, then stopped. The call log never revealed who she tried to reach. But her mother still keeps that phone record printed and folded inside her Bible, the last timestamp before her daughter vanished into nothing. It was a Sunday night sliding quietly into Monday, July 16th, 2018. Joplin's streets were mostly empty, the air sticky and restless. Somewhere, a train whistle cut through the silence, then faded into the hum of cicadas. At 11:02 p.m., Sarah Burton was seen at a small get-together near 20th Street. Nothing special, a few friends, cheap beer, and late-night talk. But those who were there said she seemed uneasy, checking her phone often, stepping outside more than once to smoke. Around midnight, she told one friend she was heading home. She said she'd walk. It wasn't far. But minutes later, another guest offered her a ride, a man she'd known for months. Witnesses say she hesitated, then nodded. That hesitation would later haunt them all. The man told police he dropped her off near 10th Street and Rex Avenue, about 2 miles north. A quiet residential area, houses with peeling paint, broken porches, half-lit yards. At that hour, most of the neighborhood was asleep. He claimed she thanked him, stepped out of the car, and walked toward a nearby alley. That was it. No argument, no scream, just a door closing and silence. When detectives retraced the route later, they found no security cameras covering that intersection. The few that did exist had been offline that night. No footage, no license plates. Just the darkness of Joplin swallowing one more name. But nearby residents remembered things. A woman on the corner of Rex said she heard footsteps, quick, uneven, followed by what sounded like a woman's voice saying, "Wait," before fading. Another man, walking home from his night shift, told officers he saw a figure near the vacant lot, but couldn't make out if it was male or female. The details didn't line up, but the unease did. Around 12:30 a.m., Sarah's phone pinged for the last time. The signal placed her right there, in that 2-block radius. Then, nothing. No calls, no texts, no social media logins. It was as if she'd stepped off the map. Police canvassed the area days later. They found a torn flip-flop that might have been hers, but no blood, no sign of a struggle. It looked like she had simply vanished into the night. That same morning, her mother, Carol, woke up uneasy. She couldn't explain why. "It was like something pressed on my chest," she said later. She texted Sarah twice, no reply. By noon, she called again, straight to voicemail. For the next 3 days, that pattern continued. Calls, texts, silence. Only on the 4th day did the family realize the truth. Sarah wasn't just gone for the weekend. She was gone. In Joplin, rumors started immediately. Some said she'd relapsed. Others whispered about a man known for violence. But deep down, everyone knew. People don't just vanish on foot in the middle of a quiet American neighborhood without someone noticing. And yet, no one had. The streetlights of Rex Avenue burned through the night as if frozen in time. The last witnesses to a disappearance that would haunt Joplin for years to come. Morning light spilled across the kitchen table of a small house in North Joplin. The clock read 7:14 a.m., and the same coffee mug sat in its usual place, Sarah's mug. Her mother, Carol Burton, had made the habit of pouring 2 cups, one for herself, one for her daughter. Sarah often stopped by early before heading out, just to talk about her boys or complain about the heat. But that Monday, July 16th, she didn't come. By noon, Carol sent a text. "You okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday." No reply. That evening she called again, straight to voicemail. At first, it didn't seem strange. Sarah was 25, an adult. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was busy with the kids. But by the 2nd day, Carol felt it. That quiet, sharp instinct only a mother knows. Something was wrong. She drove to Sarah's apartment on South Byers Avenue. The front door was locked, the blinds half closed. Inside, everything looked normal, except the bed was made, and her favorite denim jacket was still hanging on the chair. Sarah never went anywhere without it. Carol called everyone she could think of. Friends, co-workers, the father of her children. Nobody had seen her. Nobody had heard a word. By July 20th, 4 days later, she drove to the Joplin Police Department. Her voice trembled as she filled out the missing persons report. Officer Richardson, the one who took her statement, later recalled, "She looked like someone who already knew her daughter wasn't coming home, but she filed the report anyway, just in case hope might prove her wrong." That night, the news began to spread quietly across town. Flyers went up on telephone poles. Sarah's photo, soft brown hair, copper highlights catching the sun, appeared on every Facebook page in Jasper County. Her 2 boys stayed with Carol, asking when their mum would pick them up. The older one, just 6, asked if she'd gone to heaven. Carol couldn't answer. In small towns like Joplin, people notice when a routine breaks, when someone stops coming to the same gas station or the same grocery store clerk doesn't show up. Within days, it was clear Sarah wasn't just out somewhere, she was gone. A neighbor remembered seeing a car parked outside her apartment the night before she vanished, a silver sedan with tinted windows. Others mentioned hearing raised voices near 10th Street. None of it led anywhere. Carol barely slept. Each night she'd replay the same thought. Maybe she's scared, maybe she's hurt, but she's still out there. And so began the ritual that would define her life for the next 6 years. Printing flyers, calling detectives, checking morgue lists, searching roadsides, Because when a daughter disappears, a mother doesn't stop. She just learns to live between hope and heartbreak. And in the summer of 2018, that heartbreak became the heartbeat of an entire town. The official investigation into Sarah Burton's disappearance began on July 20th, 2018, 4 days after she was last seen. By the time police arrived at her apartment, any trace of her movements had already gone cold. Detective Laurie Bickford, one of the first on the case, described walking through the small, tidy unit on South Byers Avenue. "Nothing was out of place," she said later. "No sign of a struggle, no forced entry. It was like she just stepped out and never came back." Sarah's phone had gone dark the night she disappeared. Cell tower data placed her last signal near 10th Street and Rex Avenue, a small residential stretch lined with aging homes and half-empty lots. Detectives canvassed the area, knocking on doors. A few residents remembered a woman matching her description walking near the corner that night. One thought she was being followed. Another claimed she was arguing with someone inside a silver car. None of those stories matched perfectly, but all of them led back to the same place. Rex Avenue. Crime scene teams searched the vacant properties nearby, abandoned houses with graffiti, broken windows, and the faint smell of mold. They found cigarette butts, beer cans, and a single flip-flop sandal. It looked like the kind Sarah might have worn, but DNA results came back inconclusive. They expanded the search to surrounding blocks. K9 units swept the woods behind Spring River, about 3 miles away. Drones scanned open fields. Detectives even checked the storm drains in case she'd been dumped there. Nothing. Every lead seemed to dissolve the moment it was touched. By August, detectives began focusing on the man who said he dropped her off that night, a local acquaintance with a criminal record and rumored ties to drugs. He insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. "I gave her a ride, that's it," he told investigators. "She said she had a place to crash. I didn't see her again." Police pressed him, checked his vehicle, questioned his friends. But again, no evidence. No witnesses who saw them together after that point. As weeks turned into months, frustration set in. The local press began to pick up the story. Young mother vanishes from Joplin Street. No clues, no suspects. Tips poured in from across Missouri. Sightings in Kansas City, Springfield, even Tulsa. Each one ended the same way: false hope. Meanwhile, the Burton family organized their own searches. Carol and a group of volunteers combed through empty fields, drainage ditches, and wooded areas along Route 66. They called it Operation Bring Sarah Home. But the deeper they looked, the clearer it became. Sarah had simply disappeared between one block and the next. In October 2018, the FBI quietly joined the investigation, assisting Joplin police in reviewing phone data, traffic cameras, and witness statements. Still, nothing solid. "We have reason to believe foul play was involved," one FBI spokesperson said. "But without a body, without physical evidence, we're chasing ghosts." And that's exactly what the case became. A ghost. A story that began with one missing woman and quickly turned into a silence too thick to break. For the city of Joplin, it was déjà vu. Just a decade earlier, a tornado had torn through the same streets, leaving scars that never healed. Now, another kind of storm was brewing, one built from unanswered questions. Where did Sarah Burton go, and who was keeping that secret? By the fall of 2018, Joplin was talking. In coffee shops, gas stations, and the aisles of Walmart, the same question echoed like a superstition. What really happened to Sarah Burton? When police confirmed she hadn't used her bank card, phone, or social media in months, people knew it wasn't a case of someone running away. Someone had made her disappear. But in a town like Joplin, rumors spread faster than truth. Some said she'd fallen back in with the wrong crowd. People connected to the local meth trade. Others whispered that she'd been seen in a house near Prospect Avenue, a known drug spot, the kind of place where doors never really closed and no one used their real name. Detectives followed up. They interviewed nearly a dozen people: addicts, small-time dealers, ex-boyfriends. Almost every story contradicted the last. "Yeah, I saw her there once." "No, man, she left with that guy in the silver car. She was talking about leaving town." None of it fit. None of it led anywhere. And yet one name kept coming up: a man with a violent record, someone who'd been close to Sarah in her final weeks. He denied any involvement, but he had a reputation, the kind of reputation that made people lower their voices when they said his name. He'd been questioned before in another missing person case that went nowhere. He lived just blocks from where Sarah vanished, and though police couldn't charge him, they never cleared him either. The fear spread quietly. Neighbors along Rex Avenue started locking their doors earlier. Parents told their daughters not to walk alone after dark. And whenever an unfamiliar car slowed down on those narrow streets, curtains would twitch. Reporters from local TV stations came and went. Each story opened the same way. A mother searches for answers in Joplin, and ended the same way. Anyone with information is urged to contact authorities. But no one called. Because in towns like Joplin, silence isn't just fear, it's survival. One resident told a journalist off camera, "There are people in this city who know what happened, but around here, if you talk, you disappear next." Over time, that became the ghost of Sarah Burton's case. Everyone knew something, but no one knew enough. Detectives grew frustrated. Leads dried up. The case shifted from active to pending, a bureaucratic term that means no progress, but no closure. Still, Sarah's mother refused to believe the rumors that painted her daughter as just another addict who got in too deep. "She was more than that," Carol said. "She was trying. She was coming home that night. And maybe she was. But someone made sure she didn't." Behind every rumor was a fragment of truth, buried under layers of fear and denial. The man in the silver car, the house on Prospect, the phone call that rang once and stopped. Each one was a thread. And every time detectives pulled, the thread led back to the same dark circle, a part of Joplin people pretend not to see. And in that silence, Sarah Burton's name became something more than a mystery. It became a warning. As summer turned to fall, the search for Sarah Burton stopped being just a police matter. It became something personal, for her family, for her friends, and for the people of Joplin who couldn't stand the thought that one of their own could simply vanish. Every weekend, volunteers gathered at a small parking lot near 10th and Rex, the last place she was seen. They brought flashlights, gloves, and flyers with Sarah's photo printed in black and white. Her mother, Carol, was there every time, wearing the same faded t-shirt with her daughter's name across the front. Bring Sarah home. Rain or shine, she showed up. She handed out flyers to strangers who didn't always want them. Some averted their eyes, pretending not to hear. Others took the papers, nodding silently, as if afraid to say out loud what they were all thinking, that Sarah might never come back. But Carol refused to stop. "If I stop," she told a reporter, "then whoever did this wins." She visited the police station weekly, bringing coffee for detectives, asking if there was anything new. Most days, there wasn't, but she came anyway. In early 2019, the community organized a candlelight vigil downtown. Over 100 people showed up: neighbors, classmates, even strangers who'd only seen her face on TV. The air smelled of wax and rain. Someone played Amazing Grace from a small speaker. When Carol stepped to the microphone, her voice trembled but didn't break. "If you see something, say something. If you hear something, speak up. My daughter deserves to come home." The crowd bowed their heads. For a moment, the entire city seemed to breathe the same grief. Across Joplin, small businesses taped Sarah's flyer on their doors. Diners, gas stations, laundromats. Local churches mentioned her name in Sunday prayers. Kids at her son's school made handmade posters with her picture surrounded by hearts. But time is cruel. Weeks turned into months, and those posters began to fade under the sun. One by one, the flyers peeled off windows, leaving behind the faint square outlines of hope. Still, Carol and a few volunteers refused to stop searching. They rented metal detectors, mapped drainage systems, and even walked the riverbanks when water levels dropped. Sometimes they found nothing but mud and broken bottles. Sometimes they found something that made their hearts stop. A shoe, a jacket, a strand of hair, only to learn it wasn't hers. And through it all, Joplin's people began to change. Strangers who'd never met Sarah started talking about safety, addiction, and how easily someone can slip through society's cracks. One woman, lighting a candle at the vigil, whispered to a news crew, "We've all seen her face. We all know that could be any of us." By 2020, Sarah Burton wasn't just a missing person case anymore. It was a mirror reflecting what a community becomes when it refuses to forget. And though her mother's hope sometimes flickered like those candle flames, it never went out. Because in Carol Burton's words, "Until someone shows me proof she's gone, my daughter is still out there." By the summer of 2019, a full year had passed since Sarah Burton disappeared. Her photo still hung on bulletin boards across Joplin, the corners curling, the ink fading. But the determination behind those eyes hadn't faded for the people still looking for her. That July, the Joplin Police Department, with help from the FBI and the Newton County Sheriff's Office, launched one of the largest search efforts the area had seen in years. The operation's target, a remote stretch of land near Spring River, about 6 miles outside the city. Locals called it the Hollow, a dense, overgrown area known for illegal dumping, old wells, and abandoned hunting shacks. Dozens of officers, K-9 units, and volunteers arrived at dawn. The air was heavy with humidity and silence, the kind of silence that makes you lower your voice without realizing it. Detective Laurie Bickford, now leading the case, briefed the team. "We're not just looking for a person anymore, we're looking for what's left of one." Handlers released search dogs trained to detect human remains. They moved slowly through the tall grass, sniffing, circling, their handlers whispering commands. Every time a dog barked, hearts stopped. Every time it didn't, disappointment spread like fog. For hours, they combed through creeks and ravines. By noon, they'd found pieces of torn clothing, a shirt, a sandal strap, a small silver hoop earring. At first, hope surged, but lab results later confirmed none of it belonged to Sarah. Over the next 2 years, there would be 5 more large-scale searches: Spring River, Readings Mill, Shoal Creek. Each time, the same outcome: nothing. In one search, a detective described how the entire team froze when a cadaver dog stopped near an old drainage pipe and refused to move. They dug for hours. Inside, they found only animal bones and a rusted bicycle. Another time, divers swept a flooded quarry after a tip claimed her body had been dumped there. Visibility underwater was barely 3 feet. They found nothing but beer cans and car tires. And still, every time a search ended, Carol Burton stood on the sidelines, silent, clutching her daughter's photo in a plastic sleeve to protect it from the rain. "I don't know if I want them to find something," she said once, "because if they do, it's over. And if they don't, I still get to hope." That line stayed with every officer who heard it. Even as the case stretched into its 2nd and 3rd year, detectives refused to close the file. They re-interviewed witnesses. They re-examined phone data. They followed dozens of anonymous tips, including one from an inmate who claimed to know where she was buried. When investigators went to check, all they found was another empty field. By 2021, the official report listed the case as open and active. But behind closed doors, some officers admitted they were running out of places to look. "It's like she vanished between one breath and the next," one detective said. "And we can't even find the air where it happened." Still, every July, the searches began again, as ritual, as promise, as prayer. And every July, Joplin remembered. The flyers went back up. The candles were lit. And somewhere between those woods and those streets, the question echoed louder than ever. If she didn't run away, Then who made her disappear? Years passed. The posters faded. The search parties grew smaller. But for the Burton family, time didn't move forward. It just circled around the same empty space where Sarah should have been. Inside the modest house on the north side of Joplin, Carol Burton kept her daughter's room exactly the way it was. The denim jacket still hung on the chair. A hairbrush sat on the dresser. Next to the window, a framed photo of Sarah holding her two boys smiled out at a world that no longer smiled back. Every morning, Carol brewed 2 cups of coffee, one for herself, one for Sarah. Sometimes she'd speak softly into the quiet kitchen. "If you're out there, baby, just give me a sign." But no sign ever came. Her grandsons grew older. The younger one doesn't remember his mother's voice. The older boy keeps asking when the police will bring her home. At school, teachers tread carefully. They know the Burton case. They know not to mention family trees or Mother's Day projects. For them, loss isn't a moment. It's a routine. In town, Sarah's name still lingers like a cold draft that never quite leaves the room. The waitress at the local diner keeps her flyer taped by the register. The gas station clerk says she used to come in for coffee every morning. Black, no sugar. Even the mailman admits he still catches himself looking toward her old apartment, as if expecting to see her walk out, late for something, laughing. The truth is, Joplin never really moved on, because the disappearance of one woman peeled back something deeper, the quiet realization that safety in small-town America was always an illusion. Parents started walking their kids to school again. Women began sharing rides after dark. Neighborhood Facebook groups filled with watch alerts, rumors, grainy photos of suspicious cars. Sarah Burton had become more than a missing person. She was a reminder. For Carol, that reminder lives in the quiet moments. The nights when thunder rolls and she finds herself standing at the window, watching the rain trace down the glass, whispering, "Are you cold out there?" Some nights she dreams of Sarah coming home, barefoot, older, tired, but alive. Other nights, she dreams of nothing at all, and those are the hardest ones. 6 years have passed now. Every birthday, every Christmas, every empty chair at the table deepens the silence, but Carol refuses to call it grief. "Grief means you've accepted it," she says. "I haven't. Not yet." In a box under her bed, she keeps every newspaper clipping, every detective's card, every printed map of search zones marked with red pen. She says she'll stop when Sarah comes home, or when she does. For the rest of Joplin, the story has turned into a kind of legend, told in lowered voices, remembered in candlelight. But for a mother, it's not legend. It's life paused mid-sentence. And in that pause, in that unending question mark, Joplin learned that sometimes the most haunting sound isn't a scream. It's the silence left behind. By 2023, 6 long years after Sarah Burton vanished, most of Joplin had learned to stop expecting updates. But her case was never closed, not by the police, and certainly not by her mother. Detective Bickford, who'd been with the case from the start, was now heading the cold case unit. She kept Sarah's file at the front of her cabinet, hundreds of pages thick, marked with coffee stains, fingerprints, and red tabs that meant still active. That year, something unexpected happened. In late March, a Missouri state inmate claimed to have information about a woman who disappeared from Joplin. He told investigators he'd been in a house where something bad happened. The story was vague, shifting. Sometimes it was a basement, sometimes a field. But when detectives followed up, a few details lined up eerily well. The location, the timeline, the people involved. For the first time in years, the police obtained a new search warrant. The address, a small property on the outskirts of town, less than 3 miles from where Sarah was last seen. Neighbors watched as unmarked cars rolled in at dawn. Crime scene tape stretched across the fence line. For hours, investigators dug, through soil, through memories, through the weight of years. By sunset, they carried out several evidence bags. Local reporters asked if they'd found anything. Detectives refused to comment. The next day, the police department released a short statement. The investigation into the disappearance of Sarah Burton remains active. We are following credible leads and working with the FBI to verify new evidence. It wasn't the closure anyone wanted, but it was something. Over the following months, tips started coming in again. Anonymous calls, half-whispered names, fragments of rumor that sounded hauntingly familiar. Some claimed Sarah had been taken across state lines. Others said her remains were hidden near an old quarry. Each claim led to another search, another heartbreak. But it also kept the case alive. The FBI increased the reward for information leading to Sarah's recovery. Posters went up again, newer, brighter, printed on glossy paper instead of the faded ones from 2018. The headline read, "Missing, Sarah Elizabeth Burton, last seen July 16, 2018. Beneath it, a note in bold letters, "Someone knows something." That phrase became a mantra, repeated in news broadcasts, town hall meetings, Facebook groups, because everyone in Joplin still believed that was true. Detective Bickford told a local reporter, "We're not giving up. We've had too many cases go cold. Not this one, not Sarah." Even as new officers joined the department, the case remained on the board, a photograph of Sarah's smiling face pinned with a red tag marked "Active Investigation." And while most cold cases fade quietly into statistics, Sarah's kept breathing. Her mother made sure of it. Carol still calls the police station every month. She still drives by Rex Avenue on her way to church, parking for a few minutes in silence. If she's out there, she says, I want her to know I'm still looking. In a world that moves too fast to remember, that's a rare kind of faith. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with handcuffs or headlines. It comes with persistence. And in Joplin, Missouri, persistence still has a name: Sarah Burton. The case remains open. The mystery remains unsolved. But the search, the hope, still burns quietly, like the porch light Carol refuses to turn off, just in case her daughter ever finds her way home. Night falls gently over Joplin now. The streetlights on Rex Avenue flicker to life, casting long orange shadows across cracked pavement, the same light that once illuminated the last known steps of Sarah Burton. If you drive past that corner today, you wouldn't know what happened there. The houses look the same. The mailboxes are different. Life, somehow, kept moving. But for those who remember, the air still carries something. A question that never got an answer. Who took her, and why? 6 years later, the mystery remains unsolved. Her name still sits in police databases marked active. Every year, detectives still recheck the tips. And every year, her mother still keeps the same porch light burning, a small yellow glow against the Missouri dark. Neighbors say you can see it from 2 blocks away. It never goes out. Maybe that's what hope looks like after all this time. Not loud, not desperate, but steady. A light left on for someone who may never come home, but just might. The Burton family still believes Sarah is out there, somewhere, and so does the town that once failed to protect her. Because beneath all the rumors, the lies, and the silence, there is one simple truth. Someone knows something. Maybe it's a memory pushed too far down. Maybe it's guilt that's been carried for too long. Maybe it's a secret whispered in the wrong ear 6 summers ago. But secrets don't stay buried forever. If you know anything, Carol says, please, let her come home. Her voice is tired, but it never breaks. It's the sound of a mother who's outlasted fear, outlasted time, and somehow still believes in mercy. And that's what makes Sarah Burton's story more than just another cold case. It's a story about what happens when one woman disappears, and a whole community learns what silence costs. If you're watching this, take a second to look around your own town, at the faces on the bulletin boards, at the names that have slipped from the news cycle, but never from a family's heart. Because for every missing person, there's someone still waiting, coffee growing cold, lights still burning. And if you believe that stories like Sarah's deserve to be told, if you believe that remembering her is one way to bring her closer to home, then help keep that light alive. Like this video, share her story, and subscribe to Vanished in America Story, where every week we make sure no one who vanished in this country is ever truly forgotten. Sarah Burton, missing since July 16, 2018. If you know something, speak up, because silence is how they disappear.